Hello, 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 and welcome to the Healing Half. My name is Nikki Spear. I'm a musician, author, and talk show host of this show, which has been on officially for a year, which I am still kind of in shock about, you guys. This is crazy that by at this time last year was my very first episode, and 51 episodes later brings us to our 52nd episode today, and I am so extremely grateful. So if you haven't been here before, I would love to know that you're watching. Please let me know in the comment box whether it's there, or there for you, your name and where you're calling in from, whether it's Wisconsin, Minnesota, California. We would love to know where you're calling from, and I can get to know you a little bit better. And with me, I've got a very special guest today. We're going to be playing some music for you guys. We're going to be covering a lot of things about the show. But most importantly, we're going to be saying thank you because I am so grateful for each and every one of you to have made it this year through COVID, through all of this stuff. The most roller coaster emotional thing I've ever done was this show. And I am so blessed by each and every one of you who have been on my email list, who have been watching the show, who have been supporting me. I can't even put it into words. So I just wanted to say thank you so very much. Here's to another great year, right? Who knows what the future holds, but I am here right now and you're here. And for that, I am so grateful. Now, tonight we are going to be talking a little bit about the differences between moving forward versus moving on. And that's a topic I can't wait to dive into a little bit more. But before we do that, I just want to reintroduce myself to you just in case this is the first time we've ever met. So my name is Mickey Spear. My mom, and I've actually got a picture of her right here next to me. My beautiful mother passed away when I was 13. I'm the cutie in the red hat right there. And I spent the better part of a decade pretending I was fine, avoiding feeling, and not letting anybody in, not letting anybody help me on that journey because I didn't think I needed help. Well, as you can imagine, that didn't go so hot. Again, right before I hit that 10-year mark, everything seemed to be collapsing around me. And it was emotionally, school, volleyball, relationships, spiritually. It was just so hard. And I realized that unprocessed grief was absolutely affecting my life. And I knew I needed to get help. So I went to the counselor. I started reading a lot of books. And it turns out I'm not the only one out there who doesn't like to lean into their grief. It's not natural for me, but we have to do it. So knowing now the benefits of leaning into our emotions and addressing our pain, I wanted to start a show a year ago, which is so crazy, about how can we learn how to address our own wounds, which is why I've had not 51 exactly guests, but I've had a lot of guests on the show from over, and I counted 12 organizations or grief work people. That's amazing. That's so many people, so many resources that we've all been able to tap into and learn from. And we want to teach each other how can we help ourselves, and this is like the biggest and perhaps my favorite and how can we learn to love others better. So thank you all so much for being here. I would love to know where you are coming in from, and if you've lost anybody who you've lost, feel free to do that in the comment section. And if you haven't signed up for my email list, one more time, please do so. I send out a weekly email. It's going to have the replay of the show, the notes, and some of these great organizations and opportunities that whether you use them yourself as a griever or you pass along to somebody else, it's worth having in your back pocket. So make sure you are on that list if you are not already. One of the new things that we're going to be doing this year on the email list is we're just going to have a weekly reflection question. One of the biggest feedbacks I got from my amazing audience members is they're always looking for quick, easy opportunities to lean into your grief. So I'm going to be having a question in my email, and all you have to do is respond back to me. It's a quick, easy journal for you to be able to share some of your insights with somebody and hopefully, just like me, continue along on your grief journey and lean into that. So feel free to answer this in the comments if you want, but if not, it will be in the email, which is going to be so great. And I can't wait to kind of hear from you and process our grief together. And I'll be sharing my answers to every question that I ask in that email. So make sure you stay tuned for that. And then the other big announcement as far as resources that are available to you goes is on June 5th. I would love, love, love for you to join me and the Resilience Movement, which is kind of a cool combination of me, a yoga instructor who specializes in grief yoga. I didn't know that was a thing, but I'm really excited to be part of it. And then somebody named Jenny, who was she was at Greek Grace in Space. She's part of the company that she started is called Animal Intuition. So she deals a lot with animal grief and stuff like that. So you're going to want to join us. Our link is in the comment. And if money is an issue, please know I want to give scholarships out. Oh, Dakota. Not sure if you guys can hear that or not. I will be giving some scholarships out. So if money is tight, just let me know and we will find a way, whether it's partial or full, to get you there. So again, link is in the comment. It's national. It's over Zoom. You don't have to have your camera on, and we'll go from there. So part of this year was we had, again, 51 episodes, well over 40 guests, which is amazing. Partnerships with 12 different organizations. This one on June 5th would be the 13th. And I released 2 songs, and I've got a third one coming out within a week and a half. So without further ado, let's together, before we dive into our topic tonight, let's do Light a Candle for Me. That was my first one that I released this year in January. And then my dad's also going to come back and join us at the end of our episode, and you'll get a sneak peek of the new song called My Heart Still Remembers, which, yes, that is the same title as my workbook. So everyone, if you have a candle nearby, please light one. I would love for you to join me as we sing the one, the only Light a Candle for Me. Welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
For those of you who don't know, this is my wonderful father, Mike. Everybody give a good hello to Mike in the comment section.
Hi, everyone.
He's where I learned how to do music, and we can't wait to share our little duet for you. You know, some doors can't be opened, and words can't heal a heart that's broken. Holding me in your arms is what you really need. But in the meantime, you can light a candle for me and let the flame light up the room like my smile used to do. Let the memories begin to fill your mind. Don't be afraid to say my name and begin to share your pain. And remember, I'm right by your side. No, we can't go back to the way it used to be. But in the meantime, you can light a candle for me.
When I passed away, your world stopped turning. But the love we share won't stop burning. I know one day we'll meet again, and there will be a missing piece. Time. Light a candle for me.
And let the flame light up the room like my smile used to do. And let the memories begin to fill your mind. Don't be afraid to say my name, then begin to share your pain. And remember, I'm right by your side. No, we can't go back to the way it used to be. But in the meantime, you
light a candle for me. No, we can't go back to the way it used to be.
But in the meantime,
You can light a candle for me.
thank you. Love you. So he'll be back. Don't go anywhere. You'll see more Mike Sir in just a minute. But you guys, that song, which is Light a Candle for Me, was something when I started the show back in May last year. I didn't know if I was going to produce music. I was kind of in the course. I didn't know where that would go. So the fact that I did that was kind of unexpected. And it took many months to get Light a Candle for Me up and running, and revision after revision after revision. But in January, it launched. And thanks to so many of you who shared my video. And I can't even track who shares my video sometimes, because if your page's privacy settings are private, I can't necessarily see that. But it got shared well over 60 times, which is blows my mind. And that's the only ones I know about. So if somebody shared a share, I can't track that. So praise the good Lord. And I mean that seriously. None of this is possible without God. Somebody shared it. Somebody, I have no idea who it was. And Kristen from Twin Cities Live saw the Light a Candle for Me music video on Facebook. She reached out to me, and that's how I got onto Twin Cities Live. So this Light a Candle for Me song not only hopefully, offered you guys a healing situation where you can lean into your grief, because that was my prayer the whole time. But it also, thanks to you, led me to one of the coolest opportunities of my entire life, which was to be on public big TV in the middle of the day when a bunch of people were watching. So again, thank you over and over and over again. And don't forget, if you have a friend who is hurting, send them to my website, because they will get a free candle lighting ceremony and a poem, and it has some reflection questions just by jumping on my weekly resource email list. So again, that's mickyspear.com, not only where you can find the song, but also find that free workbook if you are on my email. Whew, you guys, this year has been absolutely crazy. But we are not standing still. We have so many good and exciting things ahead. But speaking of moving ahead, that's what I wanted to talk a little bit more about tonight. When it comes to grief, so often we've got these people who think that we're moving on. And I wanted to dive into why, as somebody who's grieving, it's important for us to understand we're not moving on, we're moving forward. But also as people who are trying to help grievers to remember they're not moving on, they're moving forward. And what does that look like for both camps? So that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to dive into this topic a little bit deeper and hopefully get some revelations that can help ourselves. But before we do, I do want to just pause. For those of you who are listening, whether you're listening live or as a replay, do you mind in the comment section just putting the name of someone that you have lost before? I really want to just say their names before my next song. So I wanted to kind of give you an opportunity, a runway to do that. But I think that kind of sets the stage when we talk about moving on, is to be like, who are we talking about moving on from? So for me, my mom, who passed away, her name is Amy. And my grandma, who's also very, very special to me, passed away a year ago in March. So we just celebrated her angelversary, and her name was Louise. So I would love to see the names of people you care about. Again, whether you're watching live or as a replay, please list as many as you want, because that's going to come in handy for my next song coming up. But as we think about one of those people or all of those people, it totally depends on however you want to process. Think about, at least from my experience, we kind of have three waves, right? We have leading up to the death, for those of us who had an illness related death. We had the news and kind of like that immediate period after that, which is just a whirlwind. And then for many of us, that's when the grief starts, right? Or at least the reality starts to set in. So we kind of have these three distinct things. And of course, as you know, that third group, it evolves over time. Grief does not stay the same. And even though you think like, oh, time heals the wounds, events can pop up. It could be marriage, hard days, birth of a child, and all of a sudden this grief comes back. Holidays can be tough too. So we know grief is not a slope in any direction. It is waka, 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 right? And so it's so important that when we talk about moving forward, that we remember when we hit milestones, which does not mean we are not going to have bad days. But when we can tell we are getting, I don't even like to use the word stronger, but perhaps the wound is less of a sting some days. And perhaps when people make comments that hit your ear wrong, it doesn't send you crying to the bathroom like it used to do. And trust me, I've had a lot of those days. Maybe you see a picture and at first that used to just like cut your heart open, but now it's more subtle. It's more of a happy memory when you see that. When we have these milestones where we start to get better, and I don't mean that as if it's over, sometimes that is immediately followed by grief, like some guilt surrounding that. We tell ourselves, no, 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 I don't want to get better, because doesn't that mean I don't love them anymore? If thinking about my mom's situation, like if I am not super sad about that, does that mean that loss didn't matter? So that's what a lot of people who are grieving deal with. And if you can relate to that at all, where you've kind of found yourself having better days and then feeling bad about that, let me know in the comments. Half of the battle is just finding community to relate with each other with. But when we get in those moments, sometimes we tell ourselves that we're moving on, and we feel bad about that because part of our heart is back there and we don't want to forget. We don't want people to think that have forgotten. So we're kind of put in a really tough spot. So, one of the best ways to combat that negative, guilty feeling, at least for my own life, is to remember when you are having good days. First and foremost, that is what your loved one wants for you. They want you to be happy. You'll see them again one day. I promise you that. They don't want you to be miserable. They don't want you to stop living life because they had to stop living life. So keep that in mind, that it's okay to be happy. In fact, that's what they want for you. Just like if you were to pass away and roles would be reversed, you wouldn't want them to be miserable and sobbing the whole time either. The second thing to remember when you're starting to feel guilty about perhaps having some better days is to remember the difference between moving on and moving forward. This is so, so, so important. And I like to think of it as a hose. And I know I brought this up probably a year ago when I talk about kinking the hose. So if you've got a past and you've got a present slash future, we want there to be a steady flow between the two, where our past is with us. It flows through us. So when we talk about moving on, it kind of feels like someone's coming up to the hose and chopping it and saying, that part doesn't exist anymore. Think about how we use moving on in culture. If you can come up with ideas in the comments, I'd love to hear them, because I can only really think of this big one. But let's say you were dating somebody in college and it was a bad breakup and they broke your heart. Well, in theory, you kind of, whether you chose to or not, that relationship was cut off. They're off doing their own thing. You get to move on without them. And hopefully, they're not oftentimes in your thoughts going forward. Hopefully, you can leave that bad ex in the past where they belong, right? You don't need to be thinking about them in your new relationships. You don't need to be carrying that with you. Yes, you'll have the memories, and that's great, but that doesn't have to be part of who you are unless you want to share that often with people. So that's kind of an example of moving on in the way the culture kind of says, like, oh, I hope she moves on from him soon. He was a bad apple, right? Like, it makes sense to move on and just like let that go. But when we move forward, we've got the hose connected and we're just taking the end and we're walking forward with it. We are carrying our past with us. We have a wagon behind us filled with amazing memories. Some people call it baggage. I don't call it that. This is our memory bank, and we get to take it with us. So, yes, we might be moving forward, but we're still connected to that past. That is absolutely a fabric of who we are. And every new person that we meet, hopefully, will get to hear about that loss if they become close enough to us. Because how could you not share that with them? If it's part of you, you are carrying it with you, you are letting their legacy shine through you. Man, that's the most beautiful thing I can think of. So when you have those days where you are like, man, I'm feeling pretty good today. Maybe should I be feeling bad? Maybe a hard day comes along, whether it's Mother's Day, Father's Day, birthday, anniversary, and you're not sad like you thought you would be. Remember, you are moving forward with them. And I can promise you that if you are actively working through your loss, you are going to have more good days than bad days, but it will never go away because it's with you. So you will think of that person often, and that's okay. Sometimes those thoughts might lead to hard emotions all these years later. For me personally, I had a colonoscopy this year. And so many of you were so kind and checking up on me and how it went. And they didn't find cancer, but they found 4 precancerous polyps. And they pretty much said if we wouldn't have caught them, they would have turned into cancer. And they told me that timeline would have been about 7 to 10 years. And I did the math and I thought to myself, my mom was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer in her late 30s. That's about 10 years from where I was and back in when I had earlier this year. And I just broke down sobbing. What would have happened if she would have had a colonoscopy early on? What if her doctors wouldn't have dismissed her stomach pain? We could have avoided perhaps this whole mess. And I almost felt guilty at how lucky I was because I don't have to fight doctors. Because she died, I never have to ask for a colonoscopy again. I never have to beg for it because they're like, "Oh, that's on your medical history. Get in there." And that's a luxury many people are not afforded. And so I felt like that grief resurfaced. It reared its ugly head. And here I was processing my grief, doing this show with you guys, hearing your stories, crying with you every week. I have never been more connected to my grief. And that's a positive thing through and through. So some days are absolutely better than what I thought they would be, and other days are way harder than I thought they would be because we're leaning in fully. And both of those are part of moving forward. It doesn't mean you're not going to have bad days, and it doesn't mean some memories are going to sting a little bit more than others. But remember, that is worth celebrating. They are part of you. They will always be part of you. And if someone new in your life doesn't want to hear about that, give them the old boot because that is part of who you are. And you have to for your mental sanity. And I'm telling you, as somebody who used to avoid grief like the plague, it is for your absolute mental health. You have to take these memories and these people with you, or else a part of your soul is going to start screaming, "Hey, over here, I was part of your life. Don't you remember me?" And that's unprocessed grief, my friend. So again, whether you are grieving, I hope that brings you some peace to know that over time you will have better days, but that doesn't mean it doesn't matter, and that doesn't mean you don't care. And it certainly doesn't mean that other people should dismiss your pain or stop caring about you. It just means you are part of this path and they are with you on that journey. So keep looking for signs for them all over, you guys. They're everywhere. Hey, Dad, I'll have you come on back up. And then also, if you are helping somebody who is grieving, remember, and this is the biggest, perhaps, kicker of them all, remember that they are not moving on. So if you see somebody who's having a good day, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, their child just died, but I saw them in the grocery store and they looked great. Isn't that awesome? Like they're moving on." It's like, no, they're never going to move on from that. They might be having a good day, but that doesn't mean you should stop caring and you should stop helping them. And so for those of you who want to help people grieving, try to never use the word moving on. And can I get an amen to just never using the word moving on when it comes to grief ever again? Well, thank you guys again so much for being here. 1 year in, I think back on this day, and I'll kind of move so you can see my dad here. So a year ago, I was right before the show, I was freaking out because my Wi-Fi wasn't working. I was so nervous. I almost threw up in the bathroom. And then when the actual show started, if you guys remember from a year ago, I actually had a bunch of tech issues that first night. And I was like, oh my gosh, of course I had a bunch of tech issues. And so it's not to say I never had tech issues again, but it's just so funny to think back on how far we have come in a year. And I couldn't have hit over 20,000 views of all of my videos combined. And that's a low estimate. And that's all because of you. So thank you again so much. Please, please, please do not forget to be on that email list and stay in touch. Respond to those questions because I'm going to be working through a lot of this stuff with you guys. And I think it's going to be great for all of us to keep leaning into our grief together and setting examples for those in our life. So, you ready to share a new song with them?
I'm ready.
Okay, so everybody turn your eyes to the comments section. It's a long post that I'm putting in there, but you're gonna be happy you did. Not only is this a link for where you can leave a review for the show, get your own copy of my workbook, My Heart Still Remembers, but it's also the lyrics. So this song is gonna hopefully come out within the next week or two. It's called My Heart Still Remembers. I'm really excited to share it with you guys, and my hope is you will have more information in my next summary email with it. So before anything else, let's read some of the names that people put in the comment section. Dad, is there any name you would like to? Amy? Anyone else?
My dad. Paul.
So we've got Amy and both of us, Amy, Grandpa Paul, Grandma Louise. Lots of people are saying hi to you in the comment section. We've got Kenny, Amy, Louise, Beth. I see Tammy's joined. So I'm going to throw in Brendan, Leland. Absolutely. Thank you all so much. And for those of you who are watching it as a replay, still put the name in. I would love to hear who you are thinking of. But keep that person in mind because this is what this song is about telling the world we haven't forgotten about you. So without further ado, let's share them our new song. This town keeps buzzing, it looks the same. It's been a while since they've said your name. Yes, I know it seems like the world has moved on, but my heart still remembers every little thing. Your eyes, your smile, your laugh, your love, the way it felt when you held me. My heart still remembers. It's where you'll always be. Your spirit pulses through my veins with every new heartbeat. Sometimes the pain goes from flames down to embers, but my heart still remembers. Until we meet again.
I will
not forget.
Need you to know.
Until we meet again. I will not forget. My heart still remembers every little thing. Your eyes, your smile, your laugh, your love, the way it felt when you held me. My heart still remembers. It's where you'll always be. Your spirit pulses through my veins with every new heartbeat. Sometimes the pain goes from flames down to embers, but my heart still remembers. Yes, my heart still remembers. Thank you guys so much. I am seriously, when I say this has been the most emotional year of my life, I'm not joking, and I couldn't have done any of it without your continued support. So thank you for all the shares, for all of the love, for all the views, for buying Motherless Mother's Day cards, my workbook, my downloading my song. I am totally humbled and so grateful. So thank you so much for being part of the Mickey Spear dream. I am so grateful for you, and I can't wait to see what conversations we're going to have in a year from now. So thank you all so much for being here. I'll see you next week.